It is 5:31. This is the Administration, Communication, and Technology Committee, led by myself, Chair Brian Travis. I'm here with my colleagues Brian McGinnis and Sheila Vaccaro. This meeting has now been called to order. The first piece of business is announcements. Do you have any announcements? Okay, second order of business under announcements, comments, suggestions, petitions by residents in attendance regarding items that are not on tonight's agenda. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to reports. So 2A, the CISO monthly report. Bill.
Do you have any questions? I sent this to everyone last week. Usually I do a quarterly report. I'll be doing that next month. But if you have any questions about anything on the report, I could go through it if you want me to.
I
have no problem going through it page by page.
Why don't you hit the highlights?
Cool. We did a lot of the things they working this month with the parking office. With we had 3 handhelds. You just got the invoice today for that. That were out of service. And I wasn't prepared. I had a lot of fun. I got to help Officer Davis with extracting some evidence at a crime scene. That was my highlight of the month. We're still working on the workstation upgrades through the year. We're getting close. We're waiting on parts for the key locks at the Chestnut Street parking garage. We're just waiting for the parts to come in. I've been working with Civic Plus on the back end, building out our new agenda meeting center. That's going to offer much more information in another month or so. It's looking good. Audio upgrades, I'm going to talk about that when we get later under new business about the plan for upgrading the equipment. We did our penetration test last week with our network, internal, external testing. We're still up and running, so that's good. I'll get a report on that next week. Working on the integration of AI into the organization. Working with Ramsey and Sean and Wendy on the building and housing website. We're making some progress there. We also have to get all the PCs up to date with Windows 11 by October 25th. You asked for this, Brian, you're getting it. Getting ready to work with the police, helping them with their Axon cameras. That's their body cams and their in-car video. I look forward to helping them with that. Let's go through that. Something that Nicole had asked last month that I'm starting to include now are the analytics about who's watching these, how many people watch our meetings, either on Facebook and on YouTube. I'm always surprised how many.
I don't see too many for ACT up there, unfortunately.
It's right. Usually the most popular, usually the most important one is the least viewed. That's how I take it. Cybersecurity. We had 110 automated email protections, means the system stopped it. No one saw it. 54 times the staff has reported suspicious messaging. I love that stat. That means the staff is engaged with reporting these messages. No account takeover attempts. We did our security awareness training. Not one person clicked on it last month. That was great. I always plug my Cybersecurity Friday newsletter and YouTube channel and the Apple podcast. Subscribe, click, like. Help desk tickets, we had 68 last month. They average about 86 a month. These are just generic help desk tickets coming into IT. No unscheduled events, that's good. I can always say that's something that goes down and we have to come in and do something offline. That didn't happen yet this year, knock on wood. Our budget is looking good. I don't have it here because I wasn't prepared, but this month, Jeffrey is now also providing a monthly report, which is an addendum to this. On this copy here, it's not here, but that was a new goal we had to have Jeff, because he can give you some minute detail of the things he does, which is very important. So that's, you'll see that in the quarterlies, and from now on, you'll see that here as well. That's all I have. Any questions?
Any comments or questions up here? Any comments or questions from the audience? Thank you, Bill. All right, next item, 2B, Human Resources Report.
Good evening, everyone. John Krauser, HR Director. Just want to take a brief moment and run through this first report for the quarter. Um, I'll just hit some of the highlights unless you have specific questions, but overall, health insurance so far for this year, we did start our new Highmark Blue Shield at the beginning of the year. All the feedback that I've received has been positive so far, so all the employees seem very happy with it, with 83.9% of employee participation. Actually, really nice to have everybody included in that wants to be, and only 20 waiving off. For the first quarter, our medical coverage cost $691,105. The health savings account for the first quarter, which is going to cover a broad majority of the year minus new hires or people that become eligible, is at $268,250. The opt-out portions for that, for anybody that opted out, there were 20 total employees. For the non-uniform employees, it was 5,000 times 11 employees, and then 14,973.54 for non-uniformed officers. So a little bit more for them. As far as dental coverage goes, we stayed with the same plan with United Concordia. Employee participation there is 110 employees at just under 89%. For the first quarter, total cost for dental was a little over $26,000. For vision insurance, we stayed with Vision Benefits of America, as we have had for quite some time now. Total employee participation is 111 employees, or just under 90%. Total first quarter cost for vision is $3,449. And for those for the retirement plan, for pensioned employees, we have 44 uniform and 47 non-uniform for 91 total retired employees on the plan. A few things on demographics, just skipping ahead just a little bit. Gender distribution is still at an 80-20 split. So that's been constant for longer than I've been here. The diversity metrics, you'll notice on that it's left blank. Part of the reason why is that 59% of the employees decided not to elect to add their particular demographics or self-identify. So I felt it was more appropriate having the majority opt out to not include that in this report. In the future, I may add that back to the report should it be necessary. Total head count for the borough is 136 total employees. We have had one new hire in the first quarter, an administrative assistant. And for departures, we had one department director depart for voluntary resignation. Labor costs so far for this year, for the first quarter, $3,283,433 and change. And total labor hours, just over 58,000 labor hours. So the breakdown for each department is there in front of you. Give you a moment to absorb that. The largest, of course, being the police department, and then the lowest ranking being mayor and council. So overall, the overtime cost relatively low, but 123,000 and change, making up 1,893 hours. Turnover rate, actually very happy to say that our turnover rate is less than 1%, which definitely beats the benchmark for public administration of 5.9% annually. So far for training for this year, we have conducted a financial wellness seminar, retirement education seminar, and estate planning seminar. The positives have been that each person who has participated has walked away with a positive outlook and actually gained information from each one of those training sessions. The downside would be that lack of participation. We're sitting at 10 to 12% on average between those classes. So we would like to up the overall employee participation in future courses. Any questions? No?
A couple questions, because you threw out the demographic information up there, male, female, gender split. Do you have hiring goals around diversity and gender? Just curious. I'm wondering why you're sharing the data.
No, there are the data is shared out of transparency, but no, there are no actual goals as far as gender or any other protected status. But it's always good information to have. But we don't set any benchmarks in relation to age, race, gender, or any other protected status.
Just one other question. Oftentimes when we see numbers, figures, facts, quarterly reports, and I'm putting my finance hat on right now, we'll probably see this in some form in the finance committee meeting. Relative to budget, are you where you expected to be in terms of labor costs, so on and so forth?
Yes, as far as labor cost goes, we're right where we should be. And Barb will give more detail to that during the finance committee meeting. But yeah, we're right where we need to be as far as labor cost goes.
I don't think I have any other questions. Any questions up here on the dais?
All right.
Any questions from the public in the audience tonight? Comments? Thank you, John.
All right. Thank you all.
Mr. Flynn.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to address something that's going on in the HR department. I wrote it down so I could read it exactly the way I understood the way I wrote it. Bernie Flynn, Ward 6, Westchester Borough Council, and a member of the community. Mr. Chairman, I rise tonight to share a few observations of our HR department, which Mr. Krauser just finished speaking on. Thank you, Mr. McGinnis, for your in-depth insight on the potential report on the current financial conditions caused by the federal government, which is going to impact us greatly in administration moving forward. The first 100 days of 2025 have had some repeat issues and some new challenges that were missing in Mr. Krauser's dialogue. Please allow me about 3 minutes to shed some light on some very simple topics. Number one, many of the blue-collar employees of the borough receive the longevity benefits at the end of each calendar year. This year, without notification, the employees received their paycheck and longevity benefits together in one check, which put them in a higher tax bracket. Many received much less than expected, which upset their personal budgets. And they told council members they felt disrespected because they were not notified. Number two, once again, the 1099-Rs for retirement employees were incorrect. For the second time, the forms had to be corrected and resent out. Each retiree has received a letter explaining on what date they will receive their pension checks in 2025, which is a good thing. Because there was much confusion in 2024 because the additional payments which the HR department should have communicated in advance to the retirees. We all dealt with that last year. Number three, and the last one. The page I just gave you is page 26 in the April financials. There was a staggering $92,000 payment made to our workman's compensation carrier because an audit calculation, because of an audit calculation mishap. This is a colossal mistake. I've lost my place because I want to be very emphatic about the colossal mistake. This $92,000 request is the result of the HR department submitting inaccurate payroll numbers. It appears the HR director might not have supplied the last quarter of 2024, and these estimates shouldn't fluctuate drastically because we don't have a large turnover in staff. According to the HR director's report he just gave you, the borough only had one turnover last year. In 2024, his numbers were $30,000 off, which we didn't see. We just wrote the check and paid it. So this lapse in calculation should not have happened in 2025 based on we paid $30,000 extra and we only lost one employee. So the calculations for 2025 should have been spot on. I understand the word estimate, but the borough has historical data to reflect on to produce better numbers to our workman's compensation carrier. My guess is the salaries and estimates weren't even close when we were audited. To generate such a huge payment, Mr. Chairman, this is unacceptable moving forward into 2025 because of the financial crisis that we're moving into. I spoke with Mr. Metrick, so this is not coming as a surprise to him. I suggested to him to revisit the HR department's mission and decide if drastic measures should be considered moving forward. Any questions?
Just for Mr. Metrick, since your name just came up, and can you elaborate on any of this? You want to add a little bit of color to allow a rebuttal, maybe some explanation further about what mistakes took place, what remedies are in place?
Not, excuse me, not right now, but I'd like an opportunity to do that maybe at the work session where all of council can hear it, if
Okay.
that's okay.
That's fair. Any questions up here? Thank you for pointing this out to us.
Thank you.
Any questions regarding Mr. Flynn's comments from the?
I just had one, and Sean, it's regarding the 1099-R being reissued. That was from the 2024, I believe, overpayment, correct? In which case they received 2 payments in December. Is that correct?
I think we have documentation about all this that goes back months ago that we talked about.
I think we
Why
did.
the 1099-R had more than 12 payments in it. I think we've already.
Right. Okay. So for the tax.
I don't recall off the top of my head to answer your question.
Yeah. Okay. So just one 1099-R that was reissued, I believe. Okay. All right. Just to be clear.
Okay. All right, moving on to old business. First item, 3A, approve the March 2025 minutes. Anybody have any comments about the minutes? We had 2 items come back from the minutes that we're going to talk about again tonight. The first is 3B, the SEPTA and Westchester Borough Lease Agreement for use of the Westchester Branch line. Just for a little bit of background, this is something that has been discussed for probably a couple of years now. The last active discussion we had on this prior to last month and why it was put back on this agenda was actually July of last year. During those conversations in July of last year, the Rail Restoration Committee expressed interest in adopting new language in the lease to open up the aperture a little bit more in our current lease between SEPTA and Westchester to allow for additional uses on the Westchester branch, specifically to add commuter rail service. Come March, we were basically up against a deadline to renew a lease, with a lot of time lapsed in between July and March with not a whole lot of communication about this lease. The intent, based on the discussions last year, was to add that rail service. When we got to March, we realized it was not in the lease that we were being asked to discuss, agree, push through recommendations to council and draw up a new lease. We are still at that point right now. So the discussion that we need to have tonight is around adding language in about the intent. We're not going to draft language. I'm not a lawyer. We see some legalese up here with some red lines. It's draft language, but the intent of tonight's discussion is to include the option for commuter rail, which was previously left out, discussed ad nauseum and almost daily between last month and today. So what you're seeing up here on the screen is some suggested language from the Rail Restoration Committee to allow the option for additional passenger operators to run on the line between these destinations that are highlighted here. Are we okay with, again, this is, once attorneys get a hold of this, this is all going to change. But what the intent is here is to allow additional passenger. One thing I will point out is that it asks for additional rail operators, so more than one. Currently, we have 4 states. They're right here. Thanks for being here tonight. Which we would maintain the tourist railroad. We all want that. We've expressed the desire to do that, but and also. What the Rail Restoration Committee has also included here is freight railroad operations, and I think it's distracting, and I'm not sure why it's there. So we need a little bit more explanation as to why it's there, but for right now, I would ignore that to really just focus on allowing the option to include commuter service. You agree?
Yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Metric, we would like to put this on the work session agenda to direct the solicitor. Oh, excuse me. Any additional comments up here on the dais? No. Sorry, public comment. Questions, etc. We are going to limit it to 2 minutes per speaker.
Okay. Putting a time limit on me.
It's actually very standard.
Good afternoon, members of council. Derek Slifer, Westchester Railroad, 4 States Railway Service. Because of this proposed addition, this changes the trajectory of the entire lease. When you took everything that you took out of there, or no, I'm not saying you, but anything that was took out of here, all references to tourist railroad were eliminated. We're not a passenger operator. We're not a freight operator. So this takes us out of the equation. A passenger operator is a common carrier, which is what SEPTA is. I want to give you guys, if I can approach and give you some
Please.
Some things from the Code of Federal Regulations that defines what a passenger railroad is. I'm coming to you as a railroad expert tonight. I'm representing Westchester Railroad. I've been a member for 20 years. I'm also an employee of SEPTA. I'm a locomotive engineer. I'm a rules instructor. If you've ridden any SEPTA train, that crew on that train has probably either been certified or recertified by me. I'm also coming to you as a Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineer and Trainmen union member. This is a very slippery slope. A very slippery slope. They've changed the language. They've changed the boundaries. So there's a lot of things that need to be discussed with us in mind to go forward.
I agree. I think we prefaced that this was draft language. It's not final.
Mm-hmm.
We agreed on the intent to include commuter rail service. The language isn't perfect. You pointed out some things.
Mhm.
I would like it to be a little bit more specific versus just passenger rail and railroad operator. I think the language is a little bit too high level, fuzzy.
Mhm.
So we know this is a process and we want you involved in it.
I appreciate it.
Yes.
Can I ask just one question before I'm done here? And I hear my timer going off. What exactly is the end game for all of this? Is it coexistence? Is it picking one or the other? And what does council want as a whole? I know only 3 members are here, but what is the consensus?
To be additive and not subtractive. So we would like
Okay.
to see both the tourist trail train and commuter service operating on the line. That's the end goal.
Okay. So it's not to eliminate Westchester Railroad?
Never has been.
Is it to not give Westchester Railroad a 15-year lease, which we've been asking for 3 years?
I don't think we're at that point to discuss that right now.
For the 15.
I think we want to extend beyond a year at a time, and we want a lease that's beyond a year at a time. That's where we are right now.
That doesn't, yeah, the year doesn't work for us. I've voiced that
We've heard it
before.
loud and clear.
Mhm.
Yep, those comments are noted.
I have $300,000 in grants that are out there right now trying to get approved. I can't do that on a year-to-year lease.
Understood. I think we want something more than a year too.
Okay. Any further questions?
One comment from me, we have work to do. We know that. We want to express the intent.
I appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you very much. I would like to give you some ridership statistics, if I may. And they are rail and bus statistics that, regardless of what numbers you hear, these are the actual numbers and the costs associated with operating those services.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We'd also be looking, we want to do some of our own studies.
Yes.
We need data to support good decision-making.
Mhm.
We would also like to see projected ridership potentially out a decade from now,
Right.
based on current trends post-pandemic, which we already know car commuting is almost back to pre-pandemic levels, people driving more than 1 hour to a commute. We have a lot of development going on in Exton. People
Yeah.
are upset about it. We need more options.
I
So
agree.
we're looking at options and we're looking at building the future. So please understand that. Thank you. Any addition? Yes.
Hello, I'm Charlotte Barker. I live on North New Street and I'm a member of the Railroad Restoration Committee. So I just wanted to thank you for considering this and repeat what you said, Councilman Travis, that I've been a member of the committee since January. It was never discussed to remove the historic railroad. It was always coexisting. So that was what we were doing as a committee that reports to the Borough Council. So I want to dispel any thought about that. But how to move forward, we want to work on that together.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. One thing that's come to our attention is that we need more frequent information reporting, more visits from what's happening with rail restoration, more than once a year, more than right before we have to make a decision. So something a little bit more intentional about the plan, where we're going, where we are and where we're headed.
Okay.
And also reiterating what this committee's done over the last 14, 15 years.
Yes.
It's been a lot of work. And
Yes,
it's
it
not
has.
always been linear and it's not always been perfect. But we need volunteers like you that are believers that can actually help us make this work. So I appreciate your service.
Thank you. Yeah, and we're doing research and ready to deliver some of our information to the council. And it's good to hear feedback. So thank you.
Yeah, thank
And
you.
it's good to hear from you guys too.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Would you even share it with me? Is that anonymous?
This is all public information that if the Rail Restoration Board does the research, that should be readily available.
Tyler Haney. I'm the president of the Westchester Railroad Heritage Association, which is the 501c3 nonprofit that supports the operations of the Westchester Railroad. We're not legally involved with the lease, but our members are the volunteers that operate the railroad. We're 100% volunteer operated, as you may be aware. And I just want to say, in regards to the Rail Restoration Committee, we don't want to give off the impression that the Westchester Railroad is opposed to the expansion of public transit and working with SEPTA. We have a great relationship with SEPTA. It is just more that in past years, in some of the meetings we have attended with the Rail Restoration Committee, and from reading minutes and recordings of meetings, that we are concerned that in the past, the Rail Restoration Committee hasn't displayed an understanding that the only option for the true restoration of commuter service is for SEPTA to come in and reactivate the line as a regional rail line and completely rebuild the line. That, again, this is just my interpretation, but I have heard references to there's proposals to explore forming another regional transportation committee to operate the line. There's been the proposal to operate the pop-up metro, the experimental battery-powered train. And the reality of the situation is, you know, we have a good relationship with SEPTA. We've been in conversation with SEPTA. SEPTA's been on the record in cases saying they are not interested in operating the pop-up metro trains. It doesn't meet their plans and how they conduct their operations. And SEPTA is not going to allow for another regional transportation authority to be formed and operate on railroad property that they own. So, you know, like I say, you know, we're not opposed to the expansion of public transit. We think it's a great idea. We just don't think that the proposals that have been brought up in the past are conducive to that. And this is why we're concerned about this language inserted into the lease. If the end goal is to restore regional rail service, or train service, I should say, it's going to have to go through SEPTA on SEPTA's terms. And just one more thing to add, there is already language in the lease that SEPTA can terminate Westchester Railroad service at any time to restore regional rail service. This is in Article 8, ownership of the premises. SEPTA retains full ownership of the premises during the term of the lease. The premises are subject to retention by SEPTA of the superior right for public transit purposes. And then Article 9, recapture. SEPTA reserves the right to recapture part or all of the premises at any time during the lease if SEPTA needs the premises or any part thereof for any public transit purpose by giving notice to the borough.
Yeah, I read the lease. I'm very familiar with the language. I'm very familiar with, ideally, yeah, that would be great if SEPTA would build the line back out and they would run it and they'll re-electrify it. We would love that to happen. That doesn't seem like it's an option for us. I understand your concerns. I appreciate you coming up and vocalizing those.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
As a member of Ann Carroll, 506 South Franklin Street, right across from the Historic Railroad. As a member of Borough Council, when the original, yes, I'm aware, when the original lease was drafted, one of our main concerns as a council at that time was the liability that we were assuming. If SEPTA were to regenerate commuter rail service, then they're taking back the liability. If we, on the other hand, are going to regenerate some other form outside of SEPTA, we retain the liability. And the liabilities with that rail line as we investigated them back then, are significant, including rail bed, rails, etc. So if we were to consider that, understand that you are putting on liabilities out the wazoo. SEPTA doing it, they reassume the liabilities. So I warn you to be very, 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 very cautious about opening this up. If there were a freight derailment or passenger derailment on that track. The other thing is, these guys have done a lot of work to maintain that rail track. If in fact somebody else comes in under this and you're considering, then they need to pay back all the work that these guys have done, or the borough does, because they don't get to just use an improved track. SEPTA, yeah, it was their stuff to start with, but not a newcomer. I'm all in favor of the idea of people not using cars if they can avoid it. I appreciate that, but we assumed this liability after a couple of years of discussion, and it was for an historic railroad. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa Dorsey, Borough Council. I've been on council for 5 years. And I will say that this railroad has probably been the one item and the lease for this railroad that has taken up the most time of every meeting, of every review. I am in favor of moving away from the 1 year renewal lease. At this point in time, we have a railroad restoration committee that has been in existence since 2024. And we have yet to receive a viable plan. The borough, as Ms. Carroll just mentioned, has been very consistently said that we are not interested in being in the railroad business, that the sublease and the historical railroad provides a service to the residents. It brings in tourists. And again, without a plan from the Railroad Commission for the last 10 years, a viable one, versus taking up, and I don't know how long we've been up here, but we have all spent, everyone on council has spent significant amount of time, either individually or together, doing research on this. If we can't do it 15 years, let's give these guys a 10-year lease. Do the research that we need to do, make a final decision, make a recommendation about the commission that frankly has just consumed way too much time and has demonstrated or produced very little progress. Again, we've spent too much time on this, way too much time. And I'm sure we'll spend even more time next week during the work session. And I'm hoping that we can make progress next week and put this to bed and accommodate the railroad, the historic railroad, who has been very patient with us while we, give a committee, a window to produce nothing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jose Escamilla. I'm with the Westchester Railroad, one of the volunteer operations manager. All I want to say is that if you guys really want to preserve the chance for SEPTA to ever come back, we are your best chance. I think we have done more than other organizations or advocacy groups to keep the line open. And it's free of charge for the borough. So I really don't understand what's the hold of giving us that chance. We've done it already for almost 30 years. It's free. Somebody talk about liability. Guess what? In that lease, these guys, and me included, get that liability. not the borough. So please allow us to continue on this mission that is a positive thing for the whole town. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, I hate to do this. Terry McClure, 302 West Marshall Street. And I would just like to thank my ward representative for everything she says, Lisa, and I agree with all of it.
Thank you.
Hi, Lisa Kearns, 312 West Biddle Street. Just a question about the document and the data that, in the interest of transparency, is there a way to enter that in the public record so we could all see it? Yeah. I know, he presented it to you to consider. Right, but he obviously pulled some specific data that he's asked you to consider, and I'm just interested if the public can get a copy of that as well.
I would,
You know,
direct your comments
electronically
to
attach it or.
Derek, can we upload these documents somewhere to make them available to the public? Yeah, that's exactly what I was
Documents
thinking
then.
too. All right,
Yeah,
thank you. Everybody's comment. To move on to the next agenda item. Yeah, we want to direct the solicitor to include language for additional use on the Westchester branch, which includes commuter rail service. And to Derek's point, to specifically call out the tourist railroad as well. I think that's necessary. It needs to be in there. Oh, anything else? Yes, it was 3-0. Okay, next item. Next item is Westchester Borough and Forest State Westchester Railroad sublease agreement for the operation of the tourist train. We are discussing the lease agreement. So can you set this one up for me, Sean?
There's not much to set up. The sublease hasn't changed since we went over it last year. But we do need to the Borough Council will need to execute the lease with SEPTA before it can execute the sublease. This is a sublease to Forest States doing business as Westchester Railroad operated tourist train with very little changes to it other than the geography, if I'm correct, Derek. I think Derek would be more expert in what's exactly in it than I.
I guess the question I have is that we have a lease that's expiring right? And we need to re-up that lease for a year. Is that what we're doing here too? It's a one-term lease until we know?
That item you're referring to will appear on the work session next week, which is the borough exercising its one-year option to extend the existing lease that was signed in 2008 for its third or fourth?
It's
Third
the
of five-year options. Because it was important that we get that done so that we don't get to July 1st and we're out of a lease and then nobody can legally do anything. So we're going to exercise that one-year option, presuming council ratifies that next week, which I assume it will. And then we will notify, under the terms of that renewal, we'll notify Westchester Railroad whether they intend to renew it as well. You have a 30-day window to do that. And I presume everything will just functionally go forward with the existing lease so that we can stay in agreement with Westchester Railroad and with SEPTA to use the Westchester line and to sublease it to the tourist operations. Should council, for whatever reason, not get something executed before, in other words, run out of time, because the lease that we're in right now expires June 30.
And my question is, we're okay with the lease, but we can't extend the terms because we're still on a 1-to-1, we're still on a 1-year continuation with SEPTA.
Until both parties agree, SEPTA and the borough, to terms of a 15-year
we're-
extension, we have
right.
to operate under the existing lease.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the dais on this?
No.
Ann Carroll, 506 South Franklin Street. If in fact that is what you do with this, would it be possible for council to, at the same time, do a memorandum of understanding that if and when the lease with SEPTA is extended, there would be an extension of X years for the historic railroad? In other words, you're doing this because you are forced into doing it, because you don't have the other lease quite where you want it to be yet. But leaving these guys in complete limbo in this very challenging grant funding era is going to mean not good things for them.
Is okay with that, or?
Derek Slifer, Westchester Railroad. I just want to make sure that it's known that SEPTA already approved both of these new documents. It seems like that wasn't conveyed. These two documents, the sublease and the actual lease with SEPTA, they had already been sent to SEPTA, and SEPTA approved them and signed off on them already. So we're kind of making changes after the fact. And I just want to make sure that that's known, because any further changes with SEPTA is going to be extremely difficult, being that they already agreed to these.
What's that?
Thank you.
Don't they have to review it anyway? They're going to have to review everything we send them anyway, is that correct?
Anything that is sent gets reviewed by SEPTA, but these two documents, the second one isn't on the screen there, had already been sent to SEPTA, and they did approve them, the 15-year lease agreement with SEPTA. Both the primary lease and the sublease had already been approved. And if you scroll down on that document, you'll see it already has SEPTA's signature on it, their general counsel.
I've seen both documents. And we know where we were in the process, but this has not been executed on our end.
I understand that, but SEPTA's already approved this.
Yeah, we know, but we have not executed it on our end.
I understand that, but any changes that are made after.
I understand that as well.
On the document.
We know where we are in the process. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, John Nagy, I'm Vice President of the Westchester Railroad. I would just like to ask the question. I'm fairly new to the organization, but I know they've been in limbo on all this for a couple of years. Do you have any idea what a deadline might be for where you guys can get your work done and get this finished? Because we're just about to start, a very major fundraising campaign for the Glen Mills Station. I know that's not in your jurisdiction, but it's going to be a lot of money, and it's going to be hard to raise money under these circumstances. So I don't know whether you have any idea of a date in mind, but this feels like it keeps going on and on and on. And we really need an answer sooner rather than later, to be honest.
What is your concern?
So my concern is that we can't raise the kind of money we're going to need to raise if there's a question about whether we still have the property under our jurisdiction or not.
I don't think that's not what we're saying. That's not a concern on our end. I think we've spelled that out a couple times already. That would be this lease right here.
I have one more question. Lisa Dorsey, Borough Council. Mr. Metric, is a one-year lease the only option at this point? Like, could this be changed from 15 to 5 or 10 years? With minimal back and forth with SEPTA? Or is a one-year lease because of the June 30th pending date the only option?
No, one lease is subordinate to the other. So the sublease terms are subordinate to the main lease terms. And we are in a lease right now, but we are in the soon to exercise, I hope, the third of 1-year renewal options for both the main lease and the sublease. So it would be out of order to for SEPTA to consider a 15-year sublease when we haven't cured or entered into a new
Right, the two are tied together,
and
right?
and have a subordinate relationship.
Right.
Yeah.
So if one is changed, I mean, so again, I'll ask my question again. Is a one-year option the only option at this point in time?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments from the audience? Anything up here on the dais? Okay, we're going to move on to
Mayor Lillian DeBaptiste, Westchester. I have a couple of things I just wanted to point out. We have paused the lease because the language of the lease, and we have a one-year lease because we want to take into account the railroad committee and adding language to future leases so that they are inclusive, so that they can get the funding they need. But we cannot do that, and we should not do that to the detriment of the historic railroad, because they need funding as well, and they want to fundraise as well. This is a bird in the hand, and you're basically jeopardizing their funding at the expense of something that we don't have any hard facts about how soon they'll be ready to move. We know that they're galvanizing their forces, that they want to move. We're making provision in the leases in the future lease so that they can move forward. But we cannot allow them to move forward at the detriment of the historic railroad. So just like the other group needed to be included in the lease so that they can get funds, this group should be respected and honored enough so that they can get funds, because they're actively doing the work. So when you're looking at this, I don't think you should allow one group to get funds and then harm the other group that is actively trying to fundraise. I think this one is down the line a piece. They're not sure of their timeline. It might be 2 or 3 years. It might be 5 or 10 years. They're not sure because they have to get a lot of ducks in the row. And so even if we gave them a 10 or a 15-year lease, this group, it doesn't harm the other group because we can go back and say, now we can include the other group because they have a plan. And so I think you have to look at this from the bigger picture and not be short-sighted and think that you have to protect one group without protecting the other group. They both, need to be looked at and protected and encouraged to do what they need to do.
Tyler Haney, again, Westchester Railroad Heritage Association. And I do want to thank the mayor for, speaking in support of us. I do want to add on to the comment, the fact that it was pointed out that you don't want to do anything, to prevent us from raising funds and interfering with our operations. And I know that's been discussed before in resolutions, and we appreciate that. But I think it needs to be expanded on what falls under interfering with our operations. And as Derek mentioned, SEPTA has already signed off on the lease and the sublease. I understand it's not been executed, but if the borough seeks to change the language in the lease, that has to go back to SEPTA for approval. And as was mentioned at the beginning of this discussion, we came to the agreement in July to pursue the 15-year extension, and we didn't finally get it back from SEPTA until March. So adding another revision is going to cause that document to go back to SEPTA, and it could sit for upwards of half a year because they've got a lot on their plate, and we fully acknowledge the Westchester line is not of their highest level of concern. So, at some point, if this language keeps going back and forth and SEPTA doesn't approve it, our concern is at some point that SEPTA could go and say, this whole deal with Westchester is not worth our trouble anymore. That's it. We're not dealing with it anymore. We're not leasing the railroad to the borough. We're not doing any subleases with 4 states. The railroad's just going to sit and not be used at all, and it'll be completely disused as it was for 10 years from 1986 to 1996, when no maintenance was being done on the track by SEPTA or our volunteers. Line was completely disused. Our rail yard on Adams Street was completely overgrown. And that's what we're trying to avoid here. And that's why we want the 15-year lease extension, so that we have the security in knowing that SEPTA's in it for an extended period of time, the borough's in it for an extended period of long time. And we have a railroad that is worked on and is maintained and isn't just on the verge of abandonment. Thank you.
Yeah, Miss,
All right, one more comment at this point.
One second, Jose Escamilla, Westchester Railroad. I just don't see why, in my opinion, and I'm sure the people that volunteer will share the same opinion, we kind of feel hostage by this. If the rail restoration is so into getting communal rail, that's great. I think you're free to petition directly to SEPTA. I just don't understand why we have to be hostage for us.
I'm going to tell you why. You guys are not working together. It's disgusting that you didn't hand her a report. You need to stop looking at this as if it's one railway versus another railway and start looking at this as a service for our community. Start working together. Start moving forward. Stop acting like there's one side or the other and start caring about our borough.
I mean, that's fair, but you also take into consideration that we also have to, like the mayor said, we need, well, I'll stop.
There's just no point. You guys are saying the same thing over and over.
I know you're done with this tonight. I'm the general manager, Skip Small, Westchester Railroad. What we're trying to get across, you think we need to work with everybody. SEPTA has already told everybody, time and time again, there's one operator, not 2. They will not allow another operator along with us on their railroad.
I have been told repeatedly that SEPTA is open to this by politicians. So I cannot tell you that this is 100% true, but I have been told this. Please stop this back and forth agreement that where we either picking this side or that side. Please stop. I've been sitting up here for 4 years listening to this. My side is the winning side. My side is the right side. We've been talking about adding this language in there for months and years. We need this language in there. To
tell you what SEPTA will do. SEPTA will not authorize it. I'm going to
okay, then let's bring it to SEPTA and let's see them not authorize it.
They will not let that happen. SEPTA will not let another operator on this railroad with us.
I was told SEPTA was very open to it.
They
So
are not.
your word versus somebody else's word, I need SEPTA to say it and not you.
But I have
point
to
of-
tell you, point blank, that is off the table with SEPTA.
Point of order, one moment. Mr. Metric, and this is just a clarification here.
Tell them.
Wasn't there an email stating that they would be acceptable to the language that we want to put on the lease?
In the termination clause, correct, yeah. I don't think that goes to the gentleman's point about the actual operations of, it's the termination clause would just make it possible for SEPTA to terminate.
So, and
Not
to-
the actual
and
operations.
To Ms. Vaquero's point and to your point, sir, with this, do we know definitively, and this is for Mr. Metric as well, regarding the point that this gentleman raised, the definitive answer to that question?
Question being,
The question being, if we add language to have another operator coexist with 4 states and the Westchester Railroad, do we know a definitive answer to that question that this gentleman raised?
we know that they would agree to that language, but I think the gentleman's asking whether or not it would, the operations, they would agree to. And I don't know the answer to that question. That's a different question.
So to your point, I mean,
What we're trying to get across.
I
is
understand, yes.
That when it comes down to push and shove, SEPTA will not let another operator on the railroad coexist. And we can go over it and over it all you want to, and you think otherwise. But we can tell you that that's going to be the end result of all this. So.
Then we'll have perfect information and we'll go back and we'll look at the
We
lease
can-
again.
We can look at it and hammer it out all you want, but we want to let you know that this is going to be a situation that is not going to continue. Let's find out, but we already know, so I'm just letting you know. That's all I have.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Old business, 3D, discussion of requirement of International Code Council certification for specialized trades, HVAC, electric, plumbing, under Borough Code. There are 3 attachments actually for this. One for each, HVAC, electric, and plumbing.
Yeah, the attachments are the existing code standards for those 3 trades. And I believe the same change would affect the sections having to do with license requirements. This was an issue that Council President McCoy brought up, that does council want to cure or correct the language in there that states that the International Code Council is the issues the license, when in fact the International Code Council doesn't issue licenses. They're a certifying agency. It's the borough that issues the license to operate as electric, mechanical, and plumbing in the borough. So if that's worth consideration of council to amend, we could go through that process. And I think that is quickly and succinctly as I can distill down what I think the remaining issues are here.
I agree that that is the issue that we're talking about, is that who actually, who is issuing the license? That's the borough. And who sets forth the standards for certification? That's ICC. We had that a little bit muddled in this. We would like to direct the solicitor to clean up the language a little bit. We have some suggestions. Mr. McCoy passed along some suggestions for section 110. 110, just so we know what we're looking at. It's in K.
Thank you. So it's the same as Mr. Metric mentioned in 54, 110, and whatever the electrical is. If you go to the end where it says license required, you were there. Yeah, the very end. Yep. You just passed it. There, right there, right there. So license required and fees. So the last paragraph says, Borough of Westchester, such person must present proof that he or she was licensed by the borough prior to the adoption of this chapter or has a valid license from the International Code Council, Inc. to perform such work. What I'm suggesting is that the very last part of that, or has a valid license from the International Code Council, is not a correct statement. And the correct language that I'm proposing would say, or has proof of successful examination from the International Code Council, Inc. to perform such work. It's a pretty simple change.
It's a simple change. There's a couple different ways to option the language in here. One would be to reference proof of ICC certification. One would be specific to actually the International Code Council examination. So there's a few options here, but we just want to make sure that we're not suggesting that the ICC is providing license. It's so.
Correct.
Yeah.
They don't provide certification
Correct.
or a license. They provide an examination. They provide certification to a code enforcement official, which we had third party for inspection, but that's not what this is referring to. This is referring to the actual, electrician, plumber, or HVAC technician.
Any questions, thoughts, comments about
No, I'm,
revising the language?
I'm amendable to that.
Yeah. It's a 3-0 to direct solicitor to revise language in these sections on all three of these ordinances here. Okay, new business. Moving on. 4A, recommend Borough Council Chambers audio microphone capital project. The issues here to upgrade the audio recording and streaming services in the council chambers. There's a lease piece to this. Bill, do you want to add any flavor or color to this one?
I'll take 2 minutes.
Okay.
So I had my speaking notes here, so I just want to share this to kind of clarify what we're asking to do here. So the issue, of course, is the manufacturer of our current microphones and the associated equipment, Aerodynamics, no longer makes microphones. This has been going on for about 2 years now. We can't get parts, can't get service. The equipment's over 7 years old now. We did this prior to the remodel of the building. And what does the upgrade include? Well, we'd be going to Audio Technica equipment, replacing all of these microphones, these 8 microphones. We'd be adding 4 new of these wireless microphones. We'd have literally the ability to do up to 4 of these at a time. Right now, we can only do 2. All new equipment, new charging stations, transmitter. I kind of show you this cabinet on the screen here because it's not just the microphones you see. There's equipment in there that needs to be upgraded and replaced, in addition to the microphones and the receivers. So the hardware cost is $22,800. The installation is $12,000, and the 1-year warranty and the service. So that's a one-time cost. And so what I did was I optioned for a 3-year lease because we only had $15,000 in the budget for this when I saw the price challenge there. So if we leased it, you can see the lease payments there, $12,400 each year. At the end of the 3rd year, we own the equipment with a $1 buyout. So it's our equipment. We have equipment that we can have serviced and will be maintainable. And it's state contract, and it would just be part of the IT capital budget for the next 2 years. And if everyone's okay with this, I would present that at the May Finance Committee with a PO request. But I just wanted to pass this on. I know it's important to the council. That's why I wanted to give a little more time to it for you.
Okay. Just so I'm super clear, this is a lease to own option?
Correct. Three lease payments after the end of the 3rd lease. We pay $1 and we own the equipment.
And what is the useful life of equipment like this?
7 to 10 years.
Does it say that there? I just missed it. Okay.
It doesn't say that. You always at the mercy, and Paradynamic is a really big company. Everybody's heard of them, but they decided almost 3 years ago to get out of the microphone audio meeting business, and that really made it difficult. And maybe we could have gone another year or two with this, but we can't get parts for this equipment. And it's problematic. It's going to just be more problematic. So these meetings are so important, right? That you want to jump on it and maintain the equipment so we're not having challenges going forward.
Got it. Any questions, comments? Good idea, 3-0. All right. Oh, sorry, public comment. Yes.
I was just wondering, do you guys, what do you do with your old system? Do you recycle it? Because that might actually make the net cost lower.
It's a good question. One of the problems, well, if we decide not to keep these, we probably could sell these on the market, because a lot of organizations are stuck with this equipment and they're going through the same problems we have. Ramsey just asked me, can we use these in another meeting room? I had not thought of that. I'm going to look into it, but we would have the same problem there where these things are breaking down and you just can't get parts. But there will be some desperate organizations out there who might be very thankful.
So, yeah.
Good idea.
That's it.
Thank you. Okay, the next item is a discussion item regarding the what we're seeing on at a national level in terms of the tariff trade war, such and such going on that could have some influences on costs due to supply chain issues that we have here at Westchester. This was added by Mr. McGinnis for our discussion tonight. You want to lead the discussion on this?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Travis. So I do think that this is something that Westchester Borough Council and borough staff, as well as the heads of the various departments, should start taking into consideration now for the potential of impacts to costs, infrastructure costs, increased equipment and vehicle expenses when we purchase our vehicles, and they have to get outfitted as well. We know we have to look at that. Energy costs, potentially, strain on local tax revenue as well. Consumer confidence is down. And then a big one, our municipal obligation to funding our pensions. Right now, the stock market is down roughly about 16% year to date. So that's going to be a big hit for us looking at for next year. So those are some of the things I think that, we need to prepare for. And I think we need to prepare by controlling costs, working with the bid, promoting our small businesses. Hopefully we could, again, make sure that they're going to be staying afloat. Other things to look at are going to be looking at our pensions, looking at our expenses. I think you all know I've been passionate about that, how to reduce fees and expenses in the pension. So I think when we look towards budgeting next year, we have to look at things that are going to be absolute. And one of the things, I was going to ask Bill, is this an absolute necessity? And I think we need to look at that in every single department. Grant funding that was mentioned earlier, that could be potentially in limbo for some of these projects that we've seen. We've got money coming in for our Gay Street project phases 1 and 2, hopefully South High Street, hopefully we get more, but that's not going to be guaranteed. And so those are the things that I think that we really need to tighten up, be sure about, Mr. Metrick and department heads moving forward. What's going to be a necessity? I don't believe we should be putting a price on our public safety, but there's going to be certainly some things that the police department may need to forego and other departments need to forego. So we should just start being proactive and preparing now. So that's my point.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about, the inflationary effects we had and we saw in this budget year, in particularly our wastewater treatment supply chain was greatly affected by that. If any of our, chemicals that we use to treat are imported, we may have an impact right there. So I agree that we need our directors to kind of look at, sort of downstream supply and try to, as best as possible, get some information on where we think some of those expenses might be headed. I'm sure they're probably not going down. So it's a good point. In terms of belt tightening, are we there yet, or are we just trying to make this a thought exercise at this point?
I mean, I look at it as a thought exercise. I mean, because if we look at this and let's say if it goes the way most likely it's going to go, which is not good, that those costs are going to be pushed onto the taxpayers, right? You saw the county last year, it was like 13.78%. I don't think the residents of Westchester Borough would be happy if we had to raise taxes by that amount. And so that's why I think we should start preparing now for potentially the worst case scenario.
What action do we want to put around this?
I think, it would come down to Mr. Metric and looking at, in preparation for next year's budget, and looking at what are going to be necessities for the borough, what we can and can't do.
Mr. Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bernie Flynn, coming from the manufacturing sector, paints and coatings. The French have given us a lot of good things. Great wine, cheese, chocolate, the whole bit. The worst thing they've ever given us is a word called force majeure. It's normally a 3-month lead time of force majeure. Basically, that means that prices are going to go up and we're not sure where they're going to land. To your point, in Public Works next, we're going to be talking about various chemicals that we buy every year. I think we're going to find out that most of our suppliers will not lock in pricing because they don't know where they're going to get it from their suppliers. So at any given point, somebody's going to declare force majeure, and we could be in a little bit of a hot water or paying exorbitant amounts of money based on aluminum, for the streams, soda ash, that kind of stuff. So it would be a great exercise for Mr. Metric, and also the departments that buy a lot of disposable stuff to start looking at ranking their disposables. The most expensive, the most they use, down to the least they use, and now start looking at how we can try to lock in numbers, but I don't think we're going to be able to do it with force majeure. So to Mr. McGinnis's point, we're in uncharted waters. Haven't seen this since 2008 or Jimmy Carter's era with gasoline. You guys probably weren't even born. Sorry. We had to wait to get gas. So it's coming, and it's self-inflicted. So I think we should start ranking our disposables as you mentioned, most expensive, the most used, down. Thank you.
Thank you.
The one thing I want to add is buying local is going to be really helpful, whether we're talking about shopping in Westchester Borough, as just residents who live here, or as our borough, as local as we can get is going to be very, very helpful.
And I think working with the chamber, working with the bid, helping promote these businesses as well.
Any public comments about this general discussion? It's probably on everyone's mind right now. Well, I think we just want to convey that we're thinking forward about this as a council, at least as a committee here. Mr. Flynn, Chair of Public Works, has already mentioned a couple potential areas where we should expect or maybe have a contingency in place in case we have no choice but to pay more for something. I think it's a little bit more than the thought exercise. I think we could do some math exercises on this once we have more data available. Okay, any other business? All right. Seeing none, we are adjourned at 6:51.